Sir, may I change your name to Maya? Actually, it should, yeah. It's a little bit weird.
You want me to do that myself? Hang on, I can do it
I can
myself.
do that.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Founder Chat Room. And I'm Wina, your host for today's session. And today we are very lucky and honored to have Maya here to talk about our student club showcase happened last weekend. It's a great virtual showcase for students showing their project, their own activities. And then we will also introduce our resources and platform like founded by our Maya to help students build up their extracurriculars. So a little bit about Maya. Maya is our founder and director of leadership and introvert lab. So it's great to have you here. And before we officially start, there's a little bit housekeeping notes. So help things run smoothly. Please avoid using the raise hand feature and instead type your questions and comments directly into the chat box in English, Chinese, or any other language that you are comfortable with. And we will address your questions during the Q&A session in the end. And also, there's a little bonus. So everyone joining live session today will have a very high value resources, which is the latest publication of our student magazine, which is Lexi Gazette. You will see our students' papers and articles written by themselves. So over to you, Maya. You can start with your little bit introduction.
Thank you so much, Weina, and hello to everybody who's here with us. I understand that this is being live streamed as well. So 大家晚上好，早上好，不知道大家在哪一个时间。Hello to everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your presumably very busy lives to join me here today. My name is Maya, and I am the founder and director of our Leadership and Innovation Lab. So in Chinese, this would be our 领导力创新实验室. And so in a nutshell, what we do is we help students bring their passion projects to life. Now, a little bit about myself first before I go into all of this. So, I am originally from Singapore, grew up in Singapore, and then I went to school in the US myself. I live in France now, and I have been in this industry for a very long time. I have done at least 7 or 8 app seasons myself as a counselor, helping students get through the application season, get through the 申请季. And now I have moved into an adjacent niche where I mostly do entrepreneurship and leadership training. As everyone here, presumably, I imagine, understands, I think all of our parents, friends, network, here, all of you are very well educated about this scene. So you will be aware that a passion project or something like this is one of the very big use cases is obviously for US oriented applications, for your activities list, for your profile building, etc., etc. So I'm going to go into detail and talk about that today. I will first ask you to excuse me. I've been talking a lot all day, so if my throat sounds a little bit raspy, 大家请见谅. All right, sorry about that. I will do my very best. If you have any questions, happy to take them as well. Okay, so as a starting point, I think I will share with you all about the Leadership and Innovation Lab Spring Showcase that happened about 2 weekends ago. So what is this showcase? This showcase is basically a platform, a stage that we have organized, curated, and we present to our students as a way for them to gather applause and spotlight for their projects. So the logic here is that if you have done a passion project, 个人项目, if you have finished something that you're proud of, what is the reasonable next step here? The next step here is you want to tell people about it. You want to shout about it from the mountaintops, as you should. So imagine if students had to go find their own stages. Imagine they had to expend the time, the energy, the effort to go find conferences, to go find international symposiums to join. How much time and effort would that take? Probably a lot. And I am a mother of two myself. I understand that children today already don't sleep enough. Kids are still kids. We want them to have some amount of leisure, requires some amount of 娱乐, 还是要吃饭,还是要睡觉. Everybody still needs some amount of downtime. So what we believe here at Leadership and Innovation Lab is that everything else that doesn't require actual work on the part of the student should be taken away from their burden. We want to make things as easy as possible for the student to be able to present about what they've done in the easiest way. That is why we have an event like the showcase. So this is an event that we organize, we publicize, we market, we curate an international audience for it, and we invite/select students who have done good projects to come talk about their projects at this showcase. So this could be research projects, this could be innovation, it could be entrepreneurship. It's really up to the student. All we're doing here is we're providing them a platform to talk about this. So this is the first thing I will say about the Leadership Innovation Lab, and then I will take a step back to talk to you more about the value of all of these passion projects. Going back to the spring showcase, so we actually featured 8 student projects, and this spanned across 7 countries. That means that we had students from all over the world presenting their projects, and our audience actually spanned across 7 countries. What does this mean? This means that in terms of quantifiable metrics for your students, so in Chinese we would say 可量化数据, what are you able to write in your Common App? You would be able to say that I presented my project at an international conference that was streamed to over 7 countries with over 300 people in audience across 7 countries. This is the kind of quantifiable metrics that makes a big difference on your Common App, all right? Instead, it is not at all fluffy. It is not at all intangible. It is something that you can see, you can count as to what exactly was the impact and the geographic reach of your project. At this occasion as well, at the showcase, we were also happy to present funding. This is our in-house funding mechanism. We gave out to 13 student projects a total of $6,000 in funding. This is no strings attached funding, meaning it is purely to help our student projects grow. Why did we do this? Because at some point, pardon me, at some point, student projects, when they grow, they will inevitably need money for something. This could be to pay for a Canva subscription. This could be to buy a website domain. This could be to, I don't know, buy raw materials to make like engineering kits or whatever it is. Now, of course, a lot of our students can say that, oh, you know what? My parents are able to help me financially with this, except that all of you here would understand, what are you going to write on your Common App? Are you going to write there that daddy, mommy helped me with my project? I don't think that gets you that far. So what you actually need is an independent, objective third party to validate the value of your project and give you funding for that. That's what we have created in the Leadership and Innovation Lab. We have our in-house funding mechanism that awards all of these fundings to our students for their projects, for their pitches, so that they can be able to proudly proclaim this, that their project has been independently validated for its quality alone, right? So that was also the reason why we gave out this funding at the showcase. Now, last metric that I will talk about is our Golden Quill winners. As part of Ingenious Prep and as part of the Leadership Innovation Lab, we also celebrate our social sciences, our humanities. So twice a year, we also run the Golden Quill Literary Prize, which is a platform for our students to win extra accolades. So this is what we're all about. Remember at the start of this presentation talk, whatever, at the start of this, I said, if we can make things easier for our students to demonstrate what they've already done, we will do it. So that's why we have our in-house funding mechanism. That's why we have the showcase. That's also why we have the Golden Quill Literary Prize, which is that if you want a platform to prove that you are a good writer, that you are excellent at creative writing, this is one of those platforms that we've curated for you to be able to add gold stars to your profile. So all of this to introduce to you a very successful showcase that we recently wrapped up and a very good entry point for you to understand what it is that we do at the Leadership and Innovation Lab. So with that being said, let me kind of take a couple steps back and go back to more broad-based, all right? What it means to be a great student today. And I will show you how this relates to what I'm going to talk about. Today, I'm going to broadly speak to you about what it looks like when students actually put their hands on it and do it. Real stakes, real mentors, real outcomes, all right? So, for instance, how do I prove that I am a leader? How do I prove that I'm a visionary? How do I prove that I have good time management skills? All of these intangible qualities that our elite institutions all proclaim to be looking for. They're looking for people who will become the future maybe not Elon Musk, maybe not the best example today. They're looking for people who will become the future leaders of this world. That's what they're looking for. And the best way for you to prove that I'm going to be somebody different in future is to look at what you've already done in the past. So this is what admissions officers in top schools are looking for. They're looking for someone who can show some way to prove that they have all of these intangible, invisible qualities in them. Now, working on your own passion project, your own signature project, your own thing that you then present to admissions officers is one of the best ways to prove that you have all of this. Understanding, as admissions officers do, that all of these extra projects that you do are in addition to your regular schoolwork, not in replacement of. So you have your regular schoolwork, you have your IB, your APs, your whatever, your A levels, and on top of all of this, you have still found the extra capacity, time, energy, ability to do your own little passion project. This speaks volumes about you, and admissions officers are aware of this. This is why we're talking about all of this today. Obviously, for personal development for the students, but also in the context of standing out in a very, very competitive landscape. All right. So some examples of the kinds of projects that we can talk about. Let me share with you some of the projects that we have from the showcase. All right. So for example, research projects. We have our student who talked about shark bycatch mortality. So you can imagine that if you were a student trying to go for environmental science major or some kind of sociology conservation related major, and you write there that, oh, I have done a research project or a passion project regarding protection of sharks due to bycatches, this immediately makes your claim much more solid. Can you see that if you claim that you want to study environmental studies major, or if you write in your personal statement that, oh, I'm deeply passionate about protecting the planet, but then I see in your activities list that there is not a single thing related to that, it makes your choice of major and it makes your personal statement sound just a little bit hollow, so a little bit more difficult to believe. And imagine in a highly competitive landscape, probably something that sounds a little bit like a red flag is going to be a reason for elimination. So you don't want to put yourself into that position. You want to make sure that your narrative is strongly backed up by evidence through these kinds of projects that you do. Other examples of projects are, for instance, we had a student who did a project about AI-related sports injury screening for teen athletes. All right. So a lot of schools, especially the ones that are maybe not the best funded schools, a lot of schools don't have an in-house athletic trainer. So nobody to kind of really help these student athletes work through their injuries, work through their technique improvement, etc., etc. So we had a student who created a little AI supported, let's call it platform or kind of instructional software to help teen athletes in such situations where they may not have a professional to turn to. Also, excellent project. You can imagine that this will work very well if you were going for, say, sports management major, if you were going for sociology major, if you were going for even something related to, say, computer science engineering major. I will share one other example. So we also had a student in Canada, I believe it was in Toronto, that did a youth-directed documentary. So this student actually interviewed and filmed a documentary related to the problem of homelessness in Canada, starting in Toronto itself. And they were actually able to, through their own effort, cold call and outreach, they were able to feature members of parliament, professors, and even interview people with past lived experiences. So this was able to demonstrate real journalism. Imagine if you were going for communications or media or even economics related majors, this would be very, very persuasive. So all of these projects, they have one thing in common. Students recognized a problem around them. They found a concrete deliverable and they delivered a clear answer to the question of so what. This is kind of what separates these students' profiles, and it makes a candidacy defining story. You can imagine with a project like this, there's so much that you can write about in your personal statement, in your supplementary essays. For example, I'm sure a lot of you know that pretty much every school has a why do you want to study this question, whatever major that you proclaim you want, why do you want to study this? Now if you come already having done something like this, that question answers itself. You don't really have to worry very much about what you're going to say, because look at what I've already done. I've always been passionate about this issue. This is why I want to study this. makes perfect sense. It makes your whole profile come together in a very cohesive, very coherent manner, kind of like a centerpiece, a cornerstone around which your entire profile kind of wraps. Yeah, excellent. Okay, so having established that, I want to also talk a little bit about what are some of the other resources that we have and why all of this matters. Okay. Before I talk about all of these resources that we have to help students, I want to talk a little bit about general application landscape. All right. So today, I think that admissions officers have gotten better and better at for lack of a better way to say it, I guess spotting discrepancies or spotting red flags in profiles. Okay. So I think that there have been cases where it's maybe I think fraud is a bit strong of a word, but let's say some inconsistencies have been detected, or maybe it was not 100% confidence that a student may have done something themselves. Okay. So admissions officers are getting better and better at reading between the lines, at spotting discrepancies in profiles. And so we have to really make sure that your any student, any applicant to any of these elite colleges, that your profile is watertight, that your narrative is extremely solid, extremely coherent. These FAOs, not FAOs, AOs actually, admissions officers have shifted from counting activities to evaluating impact. I'm sure all of you are aware, for instance, that in your common app activities list, there's like 10 slots, all right? So it used to be maybe 15 years ago that it was all about filling up the 10 slots. As long as you're able to not leave any gaps, you're good. Okay. And like if you go to the UC application, I think there are 20 slots. So that is no longer the case today, that it's just about filling up the slots. So admissions officers have gone from counting activities to evaluating impact. All right. Evaluating the impact of an activity, joining a club, for example, is it something that you can put on your list. But the impact of joining a club versus the impact of launching a venture, getting it funded, presenting it publicly, these are very, very different. I'm going to explain to you, for example, the difference between institutional leadership and I forget the word for it, institutional leadership and independent leadership. Let's just call it that. So I will explain the concept and you guys will understand it immediately. There are leadership positions available in school. For example, you can be the editor-in-chief of your school newspaper. For example, you can like be captain of whatever club or whatever. Those positions exist. If you don't fill it, someone will. Those positions exist. Okay. So those positions are built in, so to speak. Okay. As opposed to positions that do not exist, as in, if you did not make an effort to create them, they would not exist. So, for example, if you didn't build your own, let's call it, I don't know, turtle saving club. All right, let's use my previous example. You gathered your little friends and then went to the local beach and decided to protect sea turtles. All right, this initiative would not exist without you. That kind of leadership is more valuable than built-in leadership, which is that either you take the position or someone else will. You didn't create the position. Now, admission officers are very aware of the difference between these two and the value and the time and energy it takes. All right, in this sense. So they're also very aware that there is such thing as bench warming. I'm sure a lot of you are aware what this means. It means in Chinese, I think the word is 挂号, is it? So you occupy the position, but you don't actually do anything. All right. So like as in many competitions, many high school in particular, high school related leadership positions within the school, it could very well be a popularity vote, meaning it's not based on competence, it's not based on ability, it's a popularity vote. That's fine. And so maybe you got voted club president not because you are any kind of great leader in particular, just because people happen to like you for other reasons. And while you were a leader for that 1 year, you didn't do anything to improve the club. All right. This is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of measuring impact. So admissions officers will be aware that, okay, you held this leadership position, but you didn't actually make an impact. What is the kind of impact that you should have made? You could have done something from, I have expanded this club from 2 people to 10 people. That's impact. This club used to meet once every month and nobody really cared. Under my leadership, they now meet once every 2 weeks with a structured meeting agenda. That's impact. Or I brought in a professor to come talk to my club members about how to better protect sea turtles. That's also impact. So this is the kind of metric that admissions officers are now going to be looking at. All right. So having explained those different kinds of leadership, having explained impact, let me now share a little bit about some of the admissions results that our LIL alumni have had. So we've actually had some really, really nice results, at least for the last 3 cycles that I've been keeping a close eye on it. But I have no doubt that the importance of a passion project definitely translates into admissions results. Example, for the last admission cycle, and we calculate the cohort of students who have done LIL and who have done this passion project as part of their application. All right. So out of these bunch of kids, 28% got into Ivy League. Let me pause there and take a moment for that statistic to sink in. 28% of students who have done a passion project like this through the Leadership Innovation Lab have been accepted into the Ivy League. If you count top 20 US schools, it's actually 108%. Now, you may be wondering, how is it possible to have 108%, right? How can you be more than 100? The reason for that is that there were multiple offers for a single person. And so if you stack it up, that's how you get 108%. All in all, to say that this way of approaching candidacy building, of approaching profile building is very, very potent, very, very effective, and definitely very, very recognized. Now, beyond the application stuff, which is obviously important, let's talk a little bit about children's own character development. As I had mentioned earlier today, like I'm also a mom. I think that there must be many parents who are listening to this right now. Obviously, we want good things to happen for our children. We want them to succeed. We want them to get into good schools. But more importantly than that, we actually want our children to grow. We actually want them to learn things. We want them to become functional, independent children who can navigate this uncertain world on their own. All right. So we want them to build these core abilities within them. So this is what I'm telling you. When you do something like this, not only does it dramatically improve your chances of getting into whatever top institutions you want, I do think that along the way, you also learn many, many valuable life skills that stick with you for a very long time. I'm going to give everybody an example here. For instance, charisma. What is one of the surest ways of demonstrating that you are a leader? Presumably, it's that you are able to persuade other people to follow you, that you have sufficient eloquence, sufficient charisma, sufficient ability to persuade that other people are willing to follow you. And that's why they have joined whatever it is that you have created. All right. So, this ability to network, to talk to other people, this is a lifelong skill that will serve children in general, or your child, my child. Hopefully, it will serve them for the rest of their lives beyond college applications, beyond all of these things. So, I'm also keeping this at the back of my mind, which is that, while college applications, while building passion projects, all of these things are very important on a paper wise. It's also very important for personal development, for character building. And I strongly believe in that. And I don't think that these two paths are mutually exclusive. So it doesn't mean that just because you do something for competitive educational landscape, it doesn't mean that it cannot also be beneficial for you as a person. I think that these two actually work together very well. And I think that this is probably one of the best experiences to get that effect. All right, great. Now, now that I have talked about that, let me take a step back and go back to Leadership and Innovation Lab. I have just painted a picture for everyone of the competitive admissions landscape, of how you can make yourself stand out, some of the statistics and proof that we have from previous admissions results to show you the recognition of the importance of such endeavors. And then from what is that called? A more high level perspective about wanting children to develop as individuals. So all of these things in mind, this is the landscape that we're looking at today, both as an educator and as a parent. Now, let me share with you more about Leadership and Innovation Lab, about how we do this for students. What are some of the resources that we've lined up for students? So, pardon me. I thought that I would start with what are our actual programs. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of things like LaunchX, for example, very, very famous. All right, just give me a minute. What is the difference between LaunchX and what we do? So, the problem with a lot of these LaunchX-like programs is that they stop at demo day. They work with students to brainstorm, to create a plan, all of those things, and then the demo day is the end of the program where students present about their plan. The problem with this is that ultimately, all of this remain on paper. It's very what's the Chinese word? 纸上谈兵. Yes. So you leave the program with just a piece of paper. This is exactly why we are different. So only 30% of our leadership and innovation lab focus is based on a brainstorming and plan. The remaining 70% is absolutely hands-on implementation because, like I said, I've been an educator for very, very long. I understand what procrastination means. I understand that to some extent, if you don't hold children's hands and guide them along and make them do it with you, you may notice that things get done a lot slower or not at all. So we are aware of that. And so we focus so much energy of our programs on actual implementation focus. So the best time to start is now. So I want you to start working on your project, start building your initiative now in front of me. I'm going to watch you do it. This is a large part of our educational philosophy in the Leadership Innovation Lab. We are extremely, extremely execution and implementation focused. To what extent? To the extent that after we have brainstorm guided students into coming up with the plan, a to-do list, all of that, let's implement your to-do list together right now in class. And at the end, when you have a nascent project that we've just finished building, what do we then have for the students? We have this thing called incubator. Now, I'm sure everyone here understands what incubator means. So we take these we take these nascent student projects and we put them through our incubator. What that means is that we pair them up with real world mentors. Let me give you an example, probably be easier. Let's say there's a student, let's call her Jane. Jane has built a financial literacy project. All right. Jane has built a financial literacy project to help other teenagers learn about like basic finance. Okay. Um, at this stage, having come up with this idea, having put it into action, what Jane has is that she has this framework of her financial literacy project built up. She has recruited maybe two or three other little friends, and this project is okay. How do we elevate this project to the next level? Through the incubator, we match Jane with someone who is in the Morgan Stanley financial team. For example, how can we do that? We routinely curate all of our expert mentor Rolodex, our network of expert mentors, so that we are able to match Jane, John, whoever. We are able to match students based on their interest area, based on what their project is, to all of these expert mentors in our network, so that the mentor can be with the student and their new project through this incubator process. And in this incubator process, what Jane is going to do is Jane is going to work under the guidance of this mentor from Morgan Stanley, and Jane is going to do something that will contribute to Morgan Stanley's financial literacy drive. So imagine what Jane is going to be able to write on her Common App. Not only is Jane going to write that founder and president of Project Financial Literacy recruited 2 to 3 people, expanded this project to 5 lessons for teens, worked with Morgan Stanley Financial Services team to contribute to Morgan Stanley's financial literacy awareness campaign. Do you see? That is the point of the incubator. So it takes your nascent project and it helps elevate it to a real world level with very, very clear impact, always with an eye on quantifiable metrics, on 可量化数据. So at the end of this incubator, what is it that we would be able to write about your accomplishment and your impact of this project? So this incubator is built into all of our LIL programs. So all of our students go through this brainstorming, plan, implementation, execution, elevation through the incubator. After this process, what they come away with is something that is immediately valuable, immediately, what is that called? Braggable. They can immediately talk about this in a very proud way on any application that they do. And it has immediate visible impact. Cool. So that's the incubator. And so other than the incubator, I wanted to talk to you about other things that we also have in the leadership and innovation lab, pardon me, as part of the ecosystem. Now, if you were to imagine, I'm trying to think of something like a circle. Okay, this is a random thing that I have on my table. Imagine if this thing was the leadership and innovation lab. All right, this is a pizza. Okay, so the programs that we actually offer are perhaps only the top slice of the pizza over here. It's one slice of the pizza out of the whole thing. What are the rest of the things in the pizza then? The rest of the things are what exactly I started this entire presentation by talking about things like the showcase. All right. So these are all opportunities, platforms, stages, things that we have designed, curated, and planned for our students so that when they are done with the program, when they have their project, they have various ways to talk about it. Now, let me explain. For example, I will go more into detail with the fund, all right? It's called the LIL Venture Fund. To the best of my knowledge, this is the world's only venture fund for high school students. All right. Of course, there are many, many venture funds out there available for young entrepreneurs, but I think most of these probably start at age 21. Even if there are some very few that do accept high school students, these high school students will be competing against peers vastly older and more resourceful than they are. It's not really a level playing field. So, as far as I know, the LIL Venture Fund is the world's only venture fund that is exclusively for high school students so that they have more of a chance. All right. We are talking about real money and real competition. So we give out up to 10,000 US dollars every year over two funding cycles to our students to genuinely help them grow their project. All right. This is not just a symbolic prize. These prizes are given out through the IdeAction Global Pitch Competition, which we also organize. So students apply, they pitch, they defend their projects, their initiatives, and then they receive the money to execute. So imagine going through this process. Not only do you get the actual money to grow your project, you also want an additional accolade. So presumably you will be able to write on your application that, my project has received what prize in the global pitch competition. As a result of my having won this prize, I was given how much in funding. This is like a double whammy thing that you can write about on your application to show how well done your project is, for instance. Okay. Now, this process alone, writing a funding application, presenting to a panel, fielding some tough questions, this process itself is more rigorous than most extracurriculars combined, and the admissions officers know this, all right? So they're very aware when you're able to write something like this on your application, what it means. Okay, great. Another example of some of the things that we have in our ecosystem, we also have connections to UN platforms. United Nations platforms where we are able to curate and organize for our students to present on UN platforms so that they're able to, again, quantifiable impact. They're able to write on their resumes that my whatever project, not only is it aligned with United Nations SDG goals, I was even selected to present in front of a panel of UN experts. This means a lot, especially at a high school level. And we have curated all of these opportunities for our students. We also have obviously things like what was I gonna say? Educational series. We also have in-house media outlets, both peer-reviewed and non-peer reviewed. I think I personally run like 4 journals. So some of these journals are peer-reviewed. So we have those are independent editorial decisions. But there are some non-peer reviewed journals where, for instance, if we have a student who did a project and they're like, I would really like some media coverage for my project. I want to be able to write an article about my project and have it published somewhere. Where we are able to do that. We are able to arrange for that media coverage for this project because we have already thought about this for students and therefore we have set up that in-house so that we are able to publish articles about it. Other ways, for instance, we are able to tap into our global network for collaboration. Now, before I talk about this, I have to take a step back and again explain application logistics. So I think a lot of you, or I would imagine some or a lot of you here are aware that applications are sorted in pools. So for example, I think East Coast is probably one pool, West Coast is one pool, like Southeast Asia is one pool, mainland China is a pool. So for example, like Malaysia, Thailand, Myanmar, Vietnam, all of these places are one pool, and then probably Hong Kong, China, all of that is one pool. Um, every school has a different pool, but your application is definitely considered by geographic regions. So your direct competition is actually, sorry, people in your same region of the same age group. Now, this is why for very obvious reasons, sometimes when students set up their own personal projects, they don't necessarily want to recruit locally. Yeah. So the logic being that, well, if I went through all of this time, energy, and trouble to set up my own project, and then I just recruit someone from my school, and they're my direct competitor, why would I do that? So then the student might think, okay, well, can I find someone to work with me so that I can share this burden of building this project without this person being my direct competitor? The answer to that is yes, but this person needs to be very far away. For example, if you are a student in Hong Kong who is in grade 11 and you work with a student who's in California who's in grade 9, there is zero competition. You're just not in the you're just not in the same competitive sphere. So it's fine. You can work together, and this way you can split the burden in half. It's a win-win situation. Now, the problem here is how do we expect somebody in Hong Kong to randomly know a child in California? You wouldn't. It's not reasonable. Who knows that? We do. We have a global network of all of these students worldwide in Genius Prep and Leadership Innovation Lab. We span 16 countries or more. I don't know what the current count is, but many, many, many countries. And so we are able to have the eagle's eye view on who's doing what, where, and how old they are. So we are able to connect somebody in Hong Kong who's doing, let's say, let me give you an example. This was a recent example. Somebody who is doing something about Alzheimer's. There's a girl in Hong Kong who's doing something about helping senior citizens with Alzheimer's. And there is a boy in Florida who is doing something about music therapy for old people. You can see the obvious collaboration potential between these two projects, but they don't know each other exists. Of course they don't. So what we did was we actually connected this girl in Hong Kong to this boy in Florida, absolutely zero competitive conflict. And so they work together to build their project. What is the advantage here? The advantage here is that both of their projects are immediately elevated to international level because they have an international partner. So on your, again, quantifiable metrics, on that, you are able to write that, oh, you know what? My project has international geographic impact because I work with a partner all the way in the US. And here is what we have done together. We have co-created content. We have written some educational resources together. We have guest starred on each other's blogs, whatever. All right. So this is the power of what we can do, the power of our network. We are able to behind the scenes see these connections and make these connections so that everybody's lives gets easier and students' projects become more impactful without there being any much time effort extra on the part of the student. Yep. Cool. All right, other things that I wanted to share with you guys. Let me think a little bit. Okay. One last thing I think I will share is time spent, all right? Now, this can span a short time or a long time. Obviously, in the process towards elite, let's call it elite US institutions, all right? Because it's primarily Ivy League. In the process towards these kinds of institutions, the earlier you start planning, the better. I think that's just objectively true. There's no way around it. The earlier you start planning this process, the better it will be because you'll have way more time. I think a lot of people here will be aware as well that on the Common App, you have to check how many years you've been involved in a certain activity, like since grade 9 or whatever. Now, we cannot turn back time. 时光不能倒流. So the earlier you start this process, the more advantageous it will be for you because the longer you would have been involved in all of your activities, and time makes a huge impact in the eyes of admissions officers. Having done an activity for 1 year versus having done an activity for 3 years, it is not at all the same thing. So that is something to take into account as well. Now, that being said, okay, if let's say you are already, today is today. I cannot go back to yesterday. So what is the best thing I can do today to improve my candidacy? Now, my view is that doing a passion project is probably one of the best things you can do. Let me explain to you. Today's date is June the 3rd, depending on where you are. Let me think. No, it's June the 3rd everywhere. If you are in China, it will be evening. If you're in the US, it's this morning. So it's June the 3rd everywhere. Now, 1st November is your ED deadline. So between now and 1st November, there's like 5 months left. So you might be wondering, what can I do in this remaining 5 months to really give my competitiveness, give my profile a boost? All right. My theory that I postulate to you is that, pardon me, I think doing a project is the best thing you can do. Why? Because your grades are already set in stone. Can't change your GPA. There are no more AP tests. AP is over until 2027. All right. There are no more open school clubs available, no more leadership positions available. It's probably not much a best use of your time if you were to take extra online classes right now, etc., etc. So many of the pieces of your application are already set in stone at this stage, June to November. Okay. So what can you do now? You can perhaps you can try to write like an excellent personal statement. That's possible. But bearing in mind that your excellent personal statement sounds very hollow without any backing. Yeah, it sounds very 空洞, okay? So it's absolutely possible for you to build something in 4 months' time. I've seen students do it in less. You can do it in 2 months even. So it's absolutely possible to build something between now and November that really makes your application stand out, makes it different. And I think that that's one of the best uses of your time if your time is short. If obviously you have a lot of luxury of time, good for you. Congratulations at having started this planning process early. And so obviously the more time that you have, the more impact and growth you would be able to do for your project. And so, it translates for itself. Um, okay, let me think about whether there was something else that I wanted to cover that I perhaps haven't talked about yet. I'm just thinking about it. No, I think I've talked about the admissions landscape. I've talked about some of what is this that we do in the Leadership Innovation Lab, why it makes sense, what is our educational philosophy towards how we approach this enterprise. And I think that that is pretty much what I had to share today. Maybe we want to move on to some questions if there are any, Wei Na.
Yeah. Actually, we have one question from one of our audience. So you mentioned that earlier is better, and we should waiting for 11 grades. And but what if my children absolutely don't have any ideas right now, and can Leo guide them from scratch to help them build a project and find direction?
The answer to that is yes. So this is a good question because you remind me of something that I haven't shared about yet, which is called the
Yeah.
LIL guarantee.
Yes.
Whoever asked this question, please rest assured, Miss Sir or Ma'am, you are not the first person in the world to have such a worry. Many, many parents come to me with this concern, which is that their child is not clear of their direction, or maybe their child procrastinates a little bit, not sufficiently motivated, etc., etc. So we guarantee is that if your child does not have their own project idea or direction, we will give it to them based on what would fit best for their for whatever they already have on their profile and what works best for their in terms of choice of subjects. All right. So we will give them a project plan. If your child does not want to come up with a to-do list or how to make the project happen, we will give them that to-do list. That is part of our guarantee. And as well as helping them with the initial steps. So, for example, what initial steps? When my child has come up with their own project, presumably there is some marketing, some like what is that called? 宣传 necessary, right? So we help them with those first steps of marketing, all the way to actually helping them create those Instagram posts. Of course, we don't do this interminably, like we don't do this forever. It would not be sustainable. But at least the first few times we help our students with that. So that is part of our guarantee to you, including, for instance, a lot of our students who are like, I have never run a team meeting before. I don't know how to organize agenda. I don't know how to run team meetings. Help me. And so that is part of our guarantee that we help students and we teach them how to set up agendas. We give them sample agenda templates. We teach them how to manage group meetings, how to run these kinds of things. So all of that is guaranteed. Yes.
Thank you, Maya.
You're welcome. Are there other questions?
Yeah. We're gonna wait for 1 more minute if we don't have any questions, so we can wrap up the day.
All good. Well, if anyone has any questions, please go ahead. Meanwhile, I wanted to just say thank you to everybody here for listening to me monologue for 43 minutes. I appreciate your patience and for listening to me. And I do apologize for my scratchy throat. I hope that didn't kind of like interrupt your understanding or any of that. Very happy to have had this opportunity here today in the Founders Chat Room to share with you about the Leadership Innovation Lab. Once again, my name is Maya, so I'm the director of LIL. If there's anything at all that I can do for you, Wei Na knows how to reach me.
Yeah. Thank you, Maya, for the fantastic sharing.
You're welcome.
So I hope it was helpful for all of you today. So I think if you have any questions, you can just contact us and we can communicate more. And we also will host this like casual chats every 2 weeks to share valuable information. And we'd love to see all of you at the same time in 2 weeks.
All right.
Okay.
Good night. Good day,
Yeah. All
everybody.
right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mia. Bye bye.
Bye.